All right, spice is the name of the game on this one.
Oh my goodness. Really?
Yeah.
It's such a good question.
Another day, another week, another podcast.
I think it's awesome. Welcome to the Blended.
That's right, another week.
Yeah, I'm excited about this caller.
It's spicy.
It is spicy.
Because anything involving money is spicy.
I remember my sister told me many, many years ago when me and my wife got married. She said, Eric, don't argue over money.
Yeah, it's not worth it.
We've done pretty doggone well of not arguing.
I mean, if you look at statistics, like the number one reason people get divorced, right?
It's money.
It's money, yeah.
And most of it you would think is somewhat uncontrollable because there's habits.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's like...
it's not just habits. It's deep-rooted behaviors.
Right, that are hard to...
that you've learned since you were a kid.
Undo. Yeah. You know, however your parents spent money, how you saw money being spent around you.
Right.
It makes a difference. So specifically, what we're addressing here is a father who is devoted to his stepchildren, gives them all the love and attention in the world, is there day in, day out, being daddy disciplined, being dad, you know... loving dad, affectionate, all that jazz. The full 180, the full landscape of daddiness.
Yeah, like soccer dad.
Right. But,
Uh-oh.
as it applies to finances,
Uh-oh.
he just doesn't view it as his responsibility to throw down hundreds of dollars on children, which we know are expensive, right?
Very expensive.
And it's, you know, the typical, it could be soccer, it could be... you know, just down to allowances, just not feeling like comfortable, you know, especially if a child isn't like kind to you, you know, it's a little difficult to be like, let's go buy this PS5.
Ooh, because I think that was like
100, 500, something like that, something ridiculous. But, you know, school, back to school, Christmas shopping, all that jazz. It's all expensive when it comes to kids, right?
Yeah.
Daycare, all that jazz.
Absolutely.
So, how do you manage a father who is seemingly, or any step parent for that matter, right? Coming into the fold, being a parent in action, but not feeling comfortable giving up the finances, especially if, let's say, the biological parent is not paying what they're supposed to.
Right.
And, I mean, how would you handle this? Did you face this? And if you did, how'd you handle it?
I mean, that's deep, right? That's deep, and I would venture to guess so many different answers for that question.
Right.
And so many different questions that I have for that father. Like,
right.
So you take your son or your daughter to soccer practice, but you just don't want to pay the $150 it costs for him to play the soccer.
Right, like pay the dues or whatever the case may be. Right.
I remember my sister telling me, don't have a emotional attachment to money.
Yeah, Alex, like my husband always says, you don't buy an emotion. Buy a car, buy a TV, whatever. You like it, you love it. You do not buy emotion. If I really want it, I'll go back the next day. 24 hours later, it'll still be there, and I can buy it with a level head.
Right.
But I'm not going to buy it immediately after test driving it and being in love with all the gadgets.
Right. And then some people, which I try not to do, is have an emotion, just the idea of spending the money.
Right.
The idea of spending the money made me feel so much better than I felt before, because I went to the store, I got in an argument with my wife or my husband, and I feel better now because I just spent $400 on golf clubs. Right,
or selfishness, right? Like in the case of this father, he admits, I'm just selfish. I've worked hard to be in the position I am in life, and I'd rather go to throw down $200 on a nice dinner with my wife or my, partner, whatever case may be.
Right.
Rather than pay $200 for, ballet classes.
Right. And most likely because he deals in money emotionally, right, which is pretty clear.
Yeah.
Right. He doesn't see the emotional get back from the kids. And I remember when we were raising our children, my stepchildren, it was different for me in that I seen an emotional attachment, an emotional give back, even if it was from my wife. Because we got into a family unit, and my idea of a family unit, for me, was I couldn't cut that corner. I just couldn't see cutting corners.
There was no separation for you.
No, there was no separation, because how could I? Now, again, this father has other children, right, in that household.
Yeah.
So for me, again, it was, What does that look like?
If one wants to play soccer and the other one wants to play soccer, then they're both going to play soccer.
Then they're both going to play soccer, right?
Right. I'm not going to say I'm going to pay your dues, but not hers.
Right. Which I mean, in my family unit, that's set up well. But I can argue against the idea of what happens the opposite way, when now you don't have the money, and now that child gets to double dip. That child gets to have two things, and your child only has one thing.
Okay.
Right?
I need further detail. I'm not.
So so let's just say, for an example, my child, maybe I don't have the money to send my kid to soccer and a soccer camp.
Okay.
And maybe their dad has money to send.
Dad is involved, so because of that, the child has more opportunities because mom and biological father are chipping in to make this happen. Versus maybe for your situation, you're like, it leaves my child out, in the cold.
Right, out in the cold, right? So now this child has me and the father.
Yeah.
I mean, so for example, in my situation, the girl's dad occasionally, and I use occasionally loosely, would donate, right? Okay. Because he didn't contribute on a regular basis.
Yeah.
So occasionally would donate. So what could that possibly mean? That could possibly mean for that Christmas,
there's a little more.
There might be an additional gift.
Right.
All right.
So now everyone's awkwardly looking at these two open up more gifts because Dad contributed.
Well, of course, I'd never let that happen.
You were gonna make it even.
Of course, I would have had to make it even if it was at the last minute, because that just wouldn't seem right, and I wouldn't feel right, for a child. But this dad that we're speaking of, all these little nuances in the background, is taking place.
In your opinion, should he be in these children's lives if he's not willing to 100% commit?
I think they have to work through it, but I don't think it's fair to box him into saying he needs to pay financially to that level. Because I think there's other ways that I'm sure he does pay financially, whether it's groceries. Right,
or taking the whole family out for dinner.
Taking the whole family out for dinner. So I'm sure and I think as long as the kids don't, that's back-end conversation.
Right.
Right, that's conversation at the mom and the husband.
Well, speaking of back-end, this is another part of this situation, is that they're looking towards marriage, right? And so now they're looking at combining their checking accounts and having... which is, an issue in of its own, especially as we're getting into more modern day women independence, blah, blah, blah. A lot of women or couples decide they're just going to have separate checking accounts, right?
Right, yeah.
It just makes things easier. At the end of the day, you're responsible for this, I'm responsible for that. We just do whatever without a disposable income, right?
Right, yeah.
But if you're taking a more traditional route and going to have just one account where both paychecks go into, and mom decides she wants to buy a PS5 for Christmas, and stepdad's not down with that idea.
Well, then what do you do then? Yeah. Well, first of all, you're setting yourself up for complete failure if you're not on the same page financially and you join accounts.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, in ours, we joined when we got married. We joint accounts.
Yeah.
And fortunately, we both have businesses, so I think that's how we probably got to get around some of the problems.
Got that business account where got the extra, I got the side money there.
Yeah, that's the fortunate for us, even though we probably never speak that.
Right.
There's an account.
Yeah.
I have an account. She has an account, but they're business accounts, and we do what we need to do for our businesses.
Right. Yeah.
But then we have our joint account.
Yeah.
That we always had.
Yeah.
That is absolutely for bills and like kids soccer and golf and football.
The family stuff,
the
family
purchases.
Stuff. Yeah.
So I would definitely recommend for them to make sure he has something that he knows that's going to go into an account for those day-to-days. And I would have him look at himself in the mirror and say to himself, what are you willing to put in the account that's going to include those babies?
Do you think that it comes down to a dollars and cents conversation? Do you think it has to be that technical where mom says, hey, listen, if we're going to do this, dad's not really in the picture. I need you to help me pick up the slack because I want to give my child the very best. So if it means I need you to, fork up $100 for dance class once a month out of your paycheck, that, does it come down to dollars and cents where he says, fine, I'm willing to do at least that, but no more.
I think in a relationship, when the no more hits, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Right? Because
you got to be more compromising.
Yeah,
it's difficult. God, these conversations about money are so difficult, man.
Yeah, and it's fluid because what you think is, you work hard. We work hard for our money.
Right.
And not just before we, maybe we don't make a lot of money.
Right.
Maybe we're making enough money
just to cover the bills.
Right, to cover the bills and have enough to make you feel good. I think the conversation would have to be what my role is in these children's life and how strong that I'm going to be. So if I need to advocate for, listen, I don't think it's important that they play golf or soccer.
Right.
Maybe I don't think that's important.
Right.
I think it's important that we're going to have family time. We're going to play Monopoly together.
Yeah.
If you're a churchgoer, we're going to we're going to look for, maybe I'm more frugal than you are.
Right.
Maybe I would never, from my own biological child, buy a PS4 or 5 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Maybe I would never do that.
That's just not me as a spender in general, not the way I spend money.
That's just not how I spend money. So for me, those are those early conversations that you would have to know.
So I want to talk about nuances here, right? Because that's important. So let's say, I think based on what you just said, this came to mind. What if it's not as technical as paying for soccer or dance or some sort of extracurricular or a field trip or whatever, right? Maybe it comes down to, I as a step parent feel better when I'm taking care of the community as a whole, the community being the family, right, as a whole, versus the benefit of one particular person or the other. So maybe my contribution is buying groceries. Right. Maybe my I take care of the grocery. The grocery bill is mine. Every 2 weeks or once a week or whatever we do our grocery shopping, that's on me.
Right.
If we want to go out to eat, that's on me.
Right. Yeah.
Gas in the car, that's on me.
Right.
Maybe your contribution feels better for you mentally, these nuances. We have to tell ourselves these things, right? That's what gets us through a lot of times.
Yeah, for sure.
So maybe it's that. Maybe that's a compromise. Maybe it doesn't have to be as dollars and cents as I need you to fork over $150 for soccer. It might be, how about you take care of soccer, I'll take care of the grocery bill. Right. Right? Because it's probably going to be the same for a family of 4 or 5 anyway, right? You know what I mean?
I don't know, with these kids they are expensive.
They are.
And if you are a parent, you want your kid to have, and they're not just expensive, they're spur of the moment expensive. Tomorrow's college shirt day. I'm like, college shirt day?
Right.
What is that?
Now you got to go buy a $60 jersey.
You got to buy something.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And if
Clemson.
Clemson.
Just a $60 jersey because it has, Clemson on it.
Right. So it's college shirt day. And I'm like, so if it's college shirt day for him, my little girl, she probably forgot about it. She's going to remember in the morning.
Yeah.
And so she's like, if he had to do it, then I'm sure she had to do it.
Right.
College shirt day. So now you're out, let's just say we live in Florida. Let's say I hit Walmart up. Let's say $60 total.
Right, yeah.
But $60 fills my truck up.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And mentally you're like, I have my day planned out and my money planned out and calculated where I've allotted that $60 for something else that's going to benefit myself and the family. Right. And now it's going to go to 2 individuals in the family.
And mama is saying, the mother is thinking, it's college shirt day. And to be quite honest, this is exactly how I'm thinking.
Right.
Well, he just told me now, I'm going to grumble a little bit, but I'm definitely taking my butt to the store.
Right.
Because my son and my daughter's going to have the shirt.
Yeah.
Right. And mama's going to think, well, I want my son. But if you don't value that piece.
Correct.
Right? That if you don't value that piece, which doesn't make you bad.
The wanting of the child to be good.
If you don't value that to that level, it doesn't make you bad.
Yeah.
It's just a level that we have for our children.
Yeah.
That's a potential. What do you mean you're going to go swipe $60 for 2 college shirts?
Right.
That they're going to wear once.
Are you kidding?
You're bugging. What do you mean?
Right.
Now we're arguing about money.
Right. Correct.
Because you're being haphazard with the money.
Right.
And she's going to argue, or at this point it's a she's going to argue all day about how it's not haphazard, how it's about this is what she needs, this is what they need.
Right.
and nobody's gonna win out of that argument.
Right. So how do you resolve that?
I mean, like, I think it starts from the beginning of those deep conversations.
Yeah.
And understanding what type of person you're dealing with, what money-wise.
Yeah.
You know, that's one thing when we get married or we want to date, we don't get into those conversations.
Yeah, we don't.
You know, you
not
may
early
see,
enough.
Not,
Yeah.
you
How
may
much do you make? How do you spend your money? All that.
We don't get in the conversation. You see him pull up in the Benz, he chilling. Oh, he got
20% interest.
Yeah, like, oh, he got a good job.
Yeah,
Did he just flash the Amex? Oh, he got the American Express. Oh.
Maxed out.
Yo, you know what I mean? He called American Express and was like, "Yes, I want to be on the payment plan."
Listen,
Like,
I need an increase.
I need an no, I can't have an increase. Dang it, you don't.
Can you lower my interest though? Just a little bit.
Just a smidge, right? You don't see that,
Yeah.
right? Unless you're bold enough. Like I used to tell my girls, and I still do: be bold.
Yeah.
Be bold enough to ask the questions, because you know what, and hope, right? That those questions are asked of you. If that young man has a problem with forking over his cash, I'm not saying it's a bad thing.
Yeah.
Because you cannot make his feelings bad.
Right.
Because you don't know where his feelings come from.
You got to decide if that's something you're willing to put up with. And if you do, you got to change your attitude about it. Because going back to the Jersey situation, for example, it's all the nuances, right?
Right.
So let's say that a situation was on the other side where kids, 10 o'clock at night, oh, by the way, Dad, it's college, shirt day tomorrow. Let's say mom knows as soon as that call comes from down the hall, I have to get up and spend my money that's not in our checking account or in our joint account, because I know if I bring it up to him, it's going to be a problem.
Drama.
Right?
Right.
So you have to decide as a mother or whatever, father, whatever the position you're in.
Right.
Is this what I'm willing to put up with?
Right.
Right? Is this what I'm willing to deal with and say, I'm just going to have to swallow that every time something like that happens with children? My goodness.
Right.
It happens a lot.
Right.
I'm going to have to just kind of take it on the chin, because I know we've made an agreement where he takes care of XYZ and I take care of ABC, and this is not in his category of things he takes care of, and it's not worth getting into a fight over. Right?
Yeah, and I'm not going to have to look at my kids and say, because I don't have it.
Right.
I don't have it. And are you going to be able to look at him knowing that he has it?
Correct.
And he's not willing.
Because those nuances, day to day, are what ruin marriages.
Yeah, right.
So you have to really, it's like one partner cheats, right?
Right.
Now we both have to work to rebuild this trust to get where we were before.
Right.
But if every time we get into a fight, I want to go back to cheating, or I don't want to trust that it is your coworker who's calling you at 10 o'clock because there's an emergency.
Right.
I have to be able to give some leeway to this stuff.
Right.
And be able to take it on the chin and say, okay, I'm going to have to just, it is what it is, right?
Yeah.
And you really have to commit to it.
Right.
If you say, okay, you take care of the groceries and the gas, and I take care of all the, child-related activities or, sporadic expenses that may come up, then you're going to have to commit to that and not be resentful over it.
And then that's asking for something that's impossible for a mother.
Yeah. No, it's a lot to ask.
And I always use words like mother.
Yeah.
But that I would be very resentful if you looked at me like I was crazy when I was going out to get my son his college shirt.
Right.
Like
yeah.
Especially when I see his face and he's like, because he's my boy, so I know he's like, yo, I'm just trying to be chilling tomorrow.
And it could be the opposite, right? It could be single dad,
yeah.
right? And girlfriend sleeping over, call comes from down the hallway, Dad, college shirt day tomorrow.
Right.
You're going, damn, I gotta get up and go get this shirt.
Right.
Cool. And she's going, wait, are we still going to dinner tomorrow night?
Boom.
And you might go, maybe not. I gotta take care of this. Like, problems. Right. It could be either way. Granted, we always come from a different, a singular perspective.
Right.
But it can go either way.
Yeah. Right.
So you have to be willing to say, okay, he or she just doesn't get it, and I either have to take that on the chin, hope that they change, or make it a mental note that they may never change and live my life the way it is.
Right. Bottom line. But
it's a difficult position, but my suggestion would be if this couple can come to a compromise about who pays for what, and the mom in this position cannot be resentful over him not choosing to be financially giving all the time, then I think they can make it. But
I just think that you end up in an emotional And once the emotions take place, when it comes down to again, when me and my wife was every day raising our little ones that are older now,
Yeah.
We never ventured into arguments when it came to money.
Yeah.
So we had the feeling like that just gave us the ability to raise with no shenanigans.
Because bio dad was not contributing.
Yeah, because you're not putting in your share.
Yeah.
So regardless of what people say, well, if you don't put in your share, you still get no. If you're not putting in your share,
Yeah.
it's very difficult for you to voice your opinion on things that you
Right.
have no knowledge of.
Yeah,
Right.
and you're sharing time too, because like the thing that's tough about the situation we were presented with was this dad really is giving his time
Right.
to the children,
Right.
no question,
Right.
taking up after school soccer practice, taking to and from,
Right.
like doing the day in day out stuff.
Right.
But for some reason, when it comes to money, he's just not as open.
Right.
So I'm sure that's tough for mom who's seeing him be a great dad.
Right.
Right. Going just this missing link, but what are you gonna do?
You're gonna make sure that that the other one and that's what he's saying. And that's two things. One of the things might be he has a problem with the idea that he's paying for somebody else's produced.
That's tough.
And so that can be one of those catalysts that just enrages him. Like,
Yeah.
I'm paying.
And I'm being dad to this child.
So I'm giving you my emotion and I'm giving you my money, and this little sucker is giving me attitude or
being disrespectful.
and probably don't even like me.
Yeah, nah.
Right? And you want me to give
PS5
my
for
point?
Christmas.
You bugging.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, so I think when it comes down to it, the levels of compromise, if you're not willing to compromise, then you need to get out.
Yeah.
Very quickly. If you are willing to compromise, then it's going to be fluid.
Because
right?
compromise, it's all you do in a blended family.
And it's fluid. It changes. So yeah, I know I told you that's all you would have to pay for, but the collared shirt came up, and they need a collared shirt tomorrow. So I'm going to go ahead and swipe that card, which means if I swipe that card, you're probably going to have to deposit an additional $60 into there so we can pay for gas tomorrow.
Right.
Right? And it's a fluid situation. And, being in a blended family is fluid. And that's the blended, baby.